Fam, what's going on? It is Kyle Henderson of Bama Football on YouTube. I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you very much for joining the show today. Let me know where you're coming from inside the comment box. I appreciate you guys being here, being on the show today. Today is Sunday, December 22nd. I appreciate you guys one more time. Yesterday was a very busy day of news. I'm going to walk you through it. I appreciate you guys being here. And 3 commitments yesterday in the college football playoffs. That's what we're going to talk about today on the show. I got T up in the house. T, what's going on?
Good morning, everyone.
Appreciate you being here, of course, T. And, it was interesting to see the news unravel yesterday because while we were looking at the college football playoffs, Alabama was still in the news because they were landing commitment after, I thought it was interesting. Every single game that happened yesterday, Alabama landed a commit during that point in time.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like, I think a lot of that is by design too. Just grabbing headlines. But yesterday was a very busy news day. So we're going to talk about the new transfer portal commitments, how they fit into Alabama's overall roster. We're going to talk about the college football playoffs in the back end of the show. I have a poll right now asking who is more of a pretender. But I was thinking about this too, T. I was like, which game, I guess Friday night's loss from Indiana, or you looking at the other playoff games, which game was more kind of satisfying to see the team lose, right? Because I see inside the comment box a lot of people happy that Tennessee lost, right? And rightfully so, but it's like seeing SMU loss, I thought was good. I've seen Indiana loss, like I thought that was good as well. Clemson, I knew that they would play a little bit better just because Dabo Swinney, I feel, he's been there before. He can get those guys coached up. But overall, I felt that seeing SMU in Tennessee lose, I thought that was definitely something that stood out to me. So I appreciate you guys being here. Let's jump right into it. We got a lot to go over. I appreciate you guys being here. We have 82 up in the house, and I'll do it a couple times today as we get everybody checked in. But please just take a minute to hit the thumbs up on this video. It certainly helps the video's performance. In a way, we're talking about Alabama's and the latest headlines overall going into the ReliaQuest Bowl. So a good place to start is the fact that Alabama has 3 new commitments from the transfer portal. And that all came yesterday. So in total, you have 5 commitments from the transfer portal. We're going to talk about each of those guys, what they bring to Alabama's overall team, and we'll talk some roster management. We'll also talk about the fact that Kaden Proctor is to miss the ReliaQuest Bowl. Now, that was a story that was broken yesterday by Rivals Tony Tsoukalis. So there's a lot of great team reporters out there, but yesterday that was put out in the evening time that Kaden Proctor will miss the ReliaQuest Bowl. And I started thinking about that, and I was like, man, that's concerning because I keep telling everybody, while you might look at this upcoming bowl game as kind of like an exhibition type game, Alabama 1,000,000% has to win this game. Like, in terms of overall urgency, there's no playing around. Like, you lose against Michigan, you lose a lot of momentum. You really do, because you could then say this team lost to 3 unranked teams. I don't care if it's an exhibition game, whatever. Like, you play to win the game against Michigan, 1,000,000%. And now, without Kaden Proctor, does that mean that Welcome Formby and Elijah Pritchard are each going to get the start against Michigan? I don't know. So we're going to talk about that on the show. I told you Isiah Horton and Nikhai Hill-Green is in. We'll talk about each of those guys and how they fit into the system. And then on the back end of the show, we'll talk about the fact that SMU got absolutely embarrassed, as did Indiana, as did Tennessee. So we'll go into that. So I appreciate you guys being here. 150 up in the house. Thank you so much for joining me today on Bama Football on YouTube. Where I want to start right now is talking about news that came out yesterday. As I mentioned, Tony Tsoukalis of Rivals.com broke this story. Kaden Proctor to miss the upcoming ReliaQuest Bowl. This is significant news, honestly. I think, looking at the guys who could have opted out that are leaving, most of those guys checked in, like the captains and stuff like that. But we knew, if I was to ask you guys, what was one of the biggest issues for Alabama's offensive line? You would point to the quarterback position. You would point to the lack of adjustments on the defensive side. You would point to the lack of the rhythmic offensive play calling. You would point to the fact that, I guess there's a lot of points. This is probably why this team didn't make the playoffs. You would also point to the fact that the right tackle position was a huge issue. So now going into this ReliaQuest Bowl, missing Proctor, does that mean that Elijah Pritchett and Formby are going to start in this game? Now, you could look at it a couple different ways. You could look at it as being positive, and you could be like, okay, this is an opportunity to go against Michigan, for these guys. And maybe that is. And maybe that's a reason that Alabama really hasn't went after actively a right tackle in the transfer portal. I mean, Kam Dewberry, I don't think he's going to play tackle. And out of the guys I'll show you after this from the graphics, like when you look to Alabama's offensive line, you have Miles McVay, who transferred to North Carolina. You have Nyquil Bentrade. He was a tackle. He transferred out to Syracuse. So the remaining tackles, at least that I'm seeing on the roster, Kaden Proctor, Elijah Pritchett, Wilcom Formby, and I mean, Olas Allen, he's a guard. So I think it's concerning. And like, if I feel like, let me ask you this inside the comment box. How important is like beating Michigan in this ReliaQuest Bowl to you? Like, this isn't an exhibition game to me. Like, I don't think you go in there and you just kind of lackadaisically go in to just, let's just go see what we can have in a scrimmage. I think there's more on the line, to be honest, because of a couple of factors. Number one, you lose this game. Again, like I said, you lose to another unranked opponent. You lose to Michigan for the last 2 times you played Michigan, which is also a big brand, considering that they fell off this year, but it's a big brand. They won a national championship a couple of years ago. You lose that game. More people will talk crap about Coach Kadyn Proctor, saying you can't do it. Courtney Morgan has ties to Michigan, right? So that kind of plays into it just a tiny bit. But also, you have the transfer portal, which is on the back end of the season. So if you don't make players happy by getting them the football, whatever the case is in this ReliaQuest Bowl, these guys transfer out. If they're like, man, Alabama couldn't even beat Michigan. The handlers and the people behind the scenes, you need to leave Alabama because Alabama's not the place for you. You see what I'm saying? That's what's concerning about going into this game. So just something that stood out to me when I started thinking about Kaden Proctor. I was like, man, that's a big injury. I don't like missing Kaden Proctor for this upcoming ReliaQuest Bowl. So I would imagine that Wilcom Formby and Elijah Pritchett start in this game. And I'm kind of curious to see if those guys have to rotate out, who steps in at that tackle position. Then I started thinking I was like, man, what other injuries are there for this upcoming game against Michigan? T, are you on that screen? Can you hear the injuries? Can you read those out?
So we have Kadyn Proctor, Malachi Moore, Keon Sapp, Deontay Lawson, Q-Rob, Cole Adams, Hale, and Bubba Hampton.
And that's
quite a few.
Yeah, and that's just to name a few guys who are missing this game. I mean, I could probably go through a whole list of a couple other guys that are missing for this game. Like I think Amari Jefferson, something's banged up with him because you only have a couple wide receivers that are going to be good to go for this game. That's why you're going to see Jalen Mbakwe play against Michigan. But Malachi Moore out with the injury. I don't even know what injury he had, but he had to have surgery. So he's played his last game at Alabama. Kaden Proctor. I think there's a lot of misinformation. Not by anyone that's put out fake news, but I think sometimes when you think about Kaden Proctor, because we've talked about him for a long time, you think that he's like going to the NFL or eligible. He's not. This is only his second year. So he's going to come back in 2025. So missing him is significant. Keon Sabb, another guy who went down, during that game against Tennessee. And then Deontay Lawson is out with a knee. I would imagine he comes back for 2025 as well. So Q-Rob, he's been out for a while. Cole Adams, also a starter. Jalen Howell, poor dude, suffered a just significant injury during the springtime. And then you have Bubba Hampton. So a lot of guys are out for this game against Michigan. But most importantly, at that left tackle position, I'm sweating a little. You know what? Now that I think about it, is like Kaden Proctor, losing him makes me nervous. But at the safety position, with 2 guys out, that means that you have Bray Hubbard, right? I think our favorite player on the team right now. And then you also have King Mack, I guess, will be the additional safety. Hey, and if you guys have comments for me inside the comment box, I'll get to you when I see them. Rich B saying, Kyle, have you seen the rumors that playoff team is having to pay to keep their players around their game? Yeah, I saw that. I think that was put out by Mike Johnson, who's now linked up with the Next Round and Crimson Cover and all those guys. That's a $1 billion platform as well. Like when I look to places that are absolutely killing it, look to like On3 and everything that Shannon Terry is like taking over the world in, and then the Next Round as well. Like those guys, those are like the kings of content. Like it's amazing to see the overall talent. So Mike Johnson, who's now working with them, he put out an interview, and he was quoted as saying that he knows of a playoff team right now. I don't know if that playoff team lost yesterday, but they were basically having to bankroll that team so they had enough players to practice. As you know, there's a lot of, different things that college football is broke right now. That might be one of them. But yeah, Kyle inside the comment box is like, Proctor is injured. So if you're just joining the show, Kaden Proctor is injured and will not play in the ReliaQuest Bowl, according to Tony Tsoukalis of Rivals. And Yeah, I think that's significant news.
So we don't have a left or a right tackle now.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think your right tackle and your left tackle are, Whitcomb Formby and Elijah Pritchett, period, right? I mean, those are your guys. So,
my point.
Yeah, I mean, it's so we'll see what happens. So anyways, that's kind of the injury news. And DC 777's like, this could be catastrophic. I mean, you got to win this game. And let me ask you inside the comment box, I'm not trying to piss you off on a Sunday. I know you're probably getting ready to go to church or take your mom out to breakfast or something like that. But do you think that the offense is do you think that there's going to be any different change in the offense versus Michigan?
I mean, no.
Do you think that like they're going to play Jalen and be like, hey, dude, we love you so much. Great job in the first quarter. Ty Simpson, take over second quarter. And then in the fourth quarter, we'll give it to Austin Mack because we're just trying to like, no. Like you got to, you're winning this game. This could turn into like a street fight. You win this game at all costs. But I don't know. I'm like, I have killer instinct. I want to win this game. I don't know if other people are looking at this like as kind of an exhibition type game.
Yeah.
Remember? I mean, so who knows? Also, as we move in, this is the biggest stuff. And yesterday, Alabama is continuing to load into the roster management, and you have 5 guys now in total that have committed to the Alabama Crimson Tide. I'm only going to say this one time. I don't think I said it in the beginning of the show. Please hit the thumbs up on this video. 277 up in the house helps the video's performance. So thank you so much for watching our content. We are a remote location. We're in Santa Fe, New Mexico for the holiday season. This is where my mom lives. I'm at my mom's house. This is the house that my grandfather built. So it's nice to come over to New Mexico, where I'm from Santa Fe, and talk Alabama football. I mean, and if you've been with the channel for many, many years, this is customary. I come back here for Christmas, but I do live in Tuscaloosa. There's like this big thing. They're like, does Kyle live in Tuscaloosa? I don't like, yes, I live not too far from Coach Saban, to be honest. Not in the same neighborhood. I didn't say that. Not in the same neighborhood, but I don't live actually. Saban and DeBoer like our next door neighbors.
We have some coaches in the neighborhood.
We do. Yeah. So, but I do live in Tuscaloosa. So 5 yesterday, and for the Alabama Crimson Tide total, 3 yesterday. And when you travel, when you're on the road and you're in this industry, you have to be able to report on news as it happens. Yesterday was a busy day. Okay. We had 3 commit to the Alabama Crimson Tide. You had Kam Dewberry, you had Nikhai Hill-Green, and you had Isiah Horton. I'm going to talk about each of those players and how they impact this overall roster or how they could going forward. So here's kind of just a snapshot. On a scale of, 1 to 10, out of these 5 prospects, and this, I don't know if Alabama is completely done in the transfer portal. I would say no. I think there's a safety end that is visiting for Baylor. I haven't had too much time to look into that. Maybe on Monday's show, I'll dive into that a little bit more. But from the guys they've gotten right here, 10 out of 10, like, man, yeah, they filled every single need. I feel good about all these guys. These are all starters. Do you feel 10 out of 10? Like, this is it? You feel 7 out of 10? Do you need a little bit more information? You 5 or 10? Or you're like, man, I think, let's continue to see what else Coach Kalen DeBoer could do. I think I might be in that 7 to 10 range right now. Maybe 6 out of 10. I feel really good about Isiah Horton. If you look at the Miami Hurricanes message boards, you'll see some people inside the comment box. Maybe even we have some Miami fans up in the house, or you might rewatch on the broadcast. But Isiah Horton's a guy, and they are upset about losing him 100%. Like, he's an impact player, whether you want to accept that or not. He's very talented, and I'll talk about him more in a second. Nikhai Hill-Green, I think this was a critical pickup, an inside linebacker. Kind of the way that I'm feeling about this right tackle, and I keep on talking about it every show. I feel that getting Nikai Hill-Green added a vet, and you pair him up to a healthy Deontay Lawson, that's a really good inside linebacker combination, okay? And then I think that third inside linebacker will be one of these guys who has a breakthrough season, maybe a Jeremiah Alexander, Justin Okoronkwo, Caden Jones. You get what I'm saying? Hey, Prime Bama, what's up? Yeah, we're live. And then you have Kam Dewberry, who committed yesterday as well. I'll talk about each of these guys a little bit more and show you how they fit into the roster in just a second. He's out of Texas A&M. It's interesting because last year you got Nyquil Bentrade from Texas A&M to Alabama, and then he stayed for 1 season. Now he's at Syracuse, and now you get Kam Dewberry, who comes in from Texas A&M as well. On the defensive line at that bandit position, you got Kelby Collins, who committed last week, and then Cam Calhoun out of Utah. who's a defensive back that committed last week as well. So 5 total so far for the Alabama Crimson Tide from the transfer portal. I think when you look to Isiah Horton and what he brings to the table, and I think a way to look at this is what does he bring to the wide receiver room that you don't have already? Well, I think what we have in Isiah Horton and what he brings and how he stands out compared to the other wide receivers is he has more height. I think he has a lot of experience because you look to Alabama's wide receiver room now, Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard, they have a lot of experience because they played, not only this season, but Jeremy Bernard in the previous season at Washington. But a lot of these other guys don't necessarily have a lot of experience. Like, I'm going to show you this graphic before I jump ahead. If you look to this graphic, which I'm showing you right now, these guys, are they players? 100%. You could look at any of their film. You could talk to people close to them. You could talk to Jamarcus Shepard about, how he sees these wide receivers. But look at this. These are facts. Only if you put your hand over Isiah Horton, you only have 2 returning wide receivers with any real experience. Like, I'm talking like games on the line type situation, like you need a big play. There's only 2. Okay. So Isiah Horton adds the veteran experience. He caught 56 balls this past year from Cam Ward for over 600 yards. He's also a bigger wide receiver, right? 6'4", 205 pounds. And if you looked at some of these wide receivers outside of Derek Meadows, these guys don't have that 6'3", 6'4" range. Right, Derek Meadows, I think, will be the tallest wide receiver in the room, probably at like 6'6". But as you can see what I'm saying, so what does he bring? The different elements. I'm talking about right here, Isiah Horton. Okay, so this is a big get in terms of adding a vet, adding somebody that you can put outside. Miami like to split him wide and like to use him in man situations because of the height advantage that he has and this playmaking ability. And I think Ryan Williams, I saw, was really excited on social media to get Isiah Horton because of this factor. Now, when you have Jeremy Bernard to deal with, you have Ryan Williams, you have Isiah Horton, you have either a slot or Josh Cuevas at the tight end position. It's going to be hard to match up with each of these guys in schematic situations. So when you have better players coming over, it's going to make you more open. And I'll always point to this. When you look to 2023 Washington, Rome Odunze, he caught 92 receptions, and the next 2 players after that caught like 52 balls and 42 balls. So there's going to be a lot of spread from the next quarterback. I'm not trying to start a war inside the comment box talking about the next quarterback, but it's going to be a completely different operational system in 2025 under a new quarterback. And I was talking to on Facebook. We have a very active Facebook channel. If you could add the link, please. Yeah. And I'm very open to dialogue, like about the quarterback position or about any type of position. And someone inside the comment box was talking about a new quarterback, and they don't think that quarterback's going to be able to operate the offense at a high level. Look, he brings up a good point. He's like, if Ty Simpson was really going to be the guy, wouldn't he have beat out Jalen Milroe? That's a fair point. I think you could definitely argue that, right? At the same point, maybe it's just like Jalen Milroe, beat him out, and he was the best guy for this transitional period, like kind of like this gap year to get to 2025. I think we know for sure there's going to be a quarterback battle at some point in time because it's up to Coach Kalen DeBoer to put the quarterback in that can run the offense at the highest level. The other point is we've gone down this road before. This exact point it is really reminiscent of when Mac Jones was about to take over and Bryce Young had just came in. It's the same thing. It'd be like Ty Simpson versus Keelan Russell. The exact same thing. And so many people wanted Bryce Young to start, even though he had no experience, even though he was a player of the year, same type of accolades, right, that Keelan Russell has. And it was Mac Jones who came in, and since he had been here, since he had worked on himself, the guy had, you could arguably say, led one of the best Alabama football teams, 2020, to a national championship and was undefeated. I'm not saying that the past is going to represent the future. I'm just saying we have been in this situation before. So let Coach Kalen DeBoer and these guys figure out who the best quarterback is. And eventually Coach Saban, had the stones to be like, yo, I'm excited about Bryce Young. I am. But Mac Jones is the guy right now. He's been here, and he is the guy that can operate this offense. And you saw what happened. Of course, they had Steve Sarkisian. Alabama has Nick Sheridan. Maybe that's the difference. I don't know. But, big addition picking up Isiah Horton yesterday to the wide receiver room. Kam Dewberry also committed yesterday. I think he was the first commitment. Yesterday was kind of like a sea of information as it kind of came in. But you're looking at a 6'4", 330-pound mauler who had 261 snaps at right guard, left guard last year for Texas A&M. I haven't had still an opportunity to really like sit down and watch him, but kind of listening to the feedback and reading from you guys inside the comment box, a lot of people feel excited about Kam Dewberry. If you've had an opportunity to read about him or watch his highlights, what is your excitement level about Kam Dewberry on a scale of 10 to 10? I think right now, based on the stats, and I'm going to show you a graphic that shows you how he fits in this offensive line, I'm wondering, is Alabama bringing him in as a reserve or a starter? Probably a starter. I think they want competition. There should be competition at every single position. I would imagine it's Duberry versus Michael Carroll versus Geno Vandermark versus Jaden Roberts, and they need to figure out who can be that best guard. I'm still really worried about the tackle position, but maybe there's one of those players that we're talking about inside there that could be a tackle. All right, so 777 is saying Cam's a big dude, 6 out of 10. Jarvis saying 7. Cook saying 8. Todd Tipton saying 8. Kimberly saying 9. Daniel Chambers saying 9. And those are look, these are some of my great fan funder users who are dialed in. So anytime I see some high levels for I depend on these people. They're undefeated. So that makes me a little bit positive in terms of how they're feeling about Kam Dewberry. So look, good addition to the offensive line. I'm all about bringing in more big bodies, whether it's offensive line, defensive line. Depth and talent is something that you need. I still feel that Alabama needs a defensive lineman too, like a big DT. I'd feel good about that. And maybe that DT and maybe that right tackle isn't even in the portal yet. So that's how Kam Dewberry comes in. And when you look to now this offensive line overall, here's what we're looking at. So you have Kam Dewberry. I put him on the far side of the screen. You have Kaden Proctor. Again, if you're just joining the show, Kaden Proctor will miss the ReliaQuest Bowl against Michigan due to injury. You have Parker Brailsford coming back. I mean, huge, okay? Jaden Roberts coming back. I still have high hopes for Jaden Roberts. I'm always going to say this when I talk about him. I don't feel that he played 100% this past year. I think he's the Hulk, right? He played banged up. Elijah Pritchett, Welcome Formby. Is that going to be your right tackle combination for this game against Michigan? That's what it looks like. Olas Alanen, Joseph Ionita, Rock Montgomery, and Casey. A lot of people really, if I was to ask, if we were to do a show specifically on the offensive line, you know what people like? Casey Poe. People feel that Casey Poe can absolutely make a run at this thing and be like a guard starter. I'm telling you. People love Casey Poe. Michael Carroll coming in, of course, and then Micah DeBose, Ma Waldrop, and then Jackson Lloyd. The graphic down here at the bottom is over Jackson Lloyd, but those are the 3 guys that you brought in. So that's your offensive line right now at this point in time. Again, Kaden Proctor, if you missed the beginning of the show, out of the ReliaQuest with the injury. Okay.
And real quick, I just want to thank DC777 for the 5 fan funder donations. That was
appreciate it. Thank you so much, DC777. That was really nice of you. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. On the back end of the show, after I'm done talking about the 3 guys who have hit, who have been added to the roster, I'm going to talk about the playoffs, and I want some feedback there. That should be fun. The playoffs are crazy. I mean, look, was there any? Did you find it? Look, I watched the games. Okay, I know you did too. I'm going to talk about Nikhai Hill-Green, who committed to Alabama yesterday as well. I didn't find any of those games interesting. I felt like some of the small storylines were moderately interesting. The game that was kind of exciting for first 4 minutes was Notre Dame, Indiana. Ohio State just beat the absolute brakes off Tennessee. SMU, we all knew that this would happen. That's what's really frustrating about those games. But Nikhai Hill-Green committed yesterday. Before I get to that, let me finish these guys. Nikhai Hill-Green, he committed yesterday. 6'2", 230 pounds, 607 snaps last year with Colorado. He's been a bunch of different places, right? He's been at Michigan, he's been at Charlotte, Colorado, now with the Alabama Crimson Tide. I think this is probably a 9 out of 10 because of the fact that you needed depth at the inside linebacker position with Jahad Campbell. I would imagine going to declare for the NFL after the ReliaQuest Bowl. Let me show you how he fits in to the overall room. You have Nikhai Hill-Green over here. You have Deontay Lawson. Honestly, call me crazy, but this isn't that. Look, Jahad Campbell, as you know, is one of my favorite defensive players. But having Nikhai Hill-Green come in to kind of bridge this gap to like Justin Okoronkwo, Caden Jones, and some of these other younger guys, I'm excited about it. Let me ask you inside the comment box, in terms of like a 10 out of 10, your excitement level about Nikhai Hill-Green and maybe the impact that you think he'll have. I think this was one of the areas of need, and we've seen Coach Kadyn Proctor be aggressive about exact needs, bringing guys in. This is a big one. I think Nikhai Hill-Green coming in last year with 82 tackles, 2 sacks. I think this is on the higher range, closer to 10 out of 10. So here's a look at the inside linebacker room. Now, you're probably still looking for that third linebacker. I kind of feel it might be Justin Okoronkwo. But you need another guy, like just as you had Justin Jefferson this past year. And why I'm saying that is because the season's a gauntlet. Injuries happen. You need rotation. The schedule is so challenging. I like the linebacker room. I feel you need a little bit more depth here, but where we're at, we're getting Nikhai Hill-Green. You take him off, I'm a little worried, to be honest, just because these guys don't have a lot of experience. But Nikhai Hill-Green coming in really added boost yesterday. All right. Yeah, I saw that Jarvis, Texas, 13.5 over Arizona State. Arizona State, by the way, has a bye in the playoffs. I know, absolutely crazy. Look, here's a look at the Alabama offensive line. I spot shadowed a couple guys next year just to kind of show you, like, and we can change out some names and we can do different formations. That's probably something we'll do after the ReliaQuest Bowl. But area of concern I'm looking at is that guard position. Like, who is going to stand out and step up and take over that guard position, whether that's Michael Carroll, Kam Dewberry coming in, who committed yesterday, Jaden Roberts, and then the right tackle position, right? And then this is a formation that Alabama frequently ran this past season that only featured 3 wide receivers with a tight end. That's Josh Cuevas there at the bottom of your screen. You could put in your different slot, or put in, your different wide receivers. I think it still works. Put in your different quarterback, put in your different running back. Just kind of a snapshot of the Alabama offense and what it could be. Same thing with the defensive side. I think this is a little bit more interesting to look at from a defensive perspective. Let me see how it looks on the screen. Okay, so on the bottom over here, you have Cam Calhoun, Deshaun Jones, Zay Mincy, maybe a Dejon Lee that are battling for that corner spot. Up at the top, you got Zabian Brown. Now, this is, of course, if Damani Jackson leaves, right, and goes to the NFL. That's that corner position, which I think he's going to do because Cam Calhoun came in, right? Your safeties up top will be Keon Sabb and Bray Hubbard. You'll have King Mack. You'll have J. Kirkpatrick as well. You'll probably get King Mack to start this weekend with Bray Hubbard because Keon Sabb and Malachi Moore out with injuries. Deontay Lawson and Nikhai Hill-Green, as you can see at your inside linebacker positions, you feel much better about that position. Now, Quay Rusa, Tim Keenan, James Smith, we'll have to see what those guys can do. Again, I'm confident about those guys, but kind of the guys behind them need more experience. And I've seen a lot of criticism in terms of the lack of defensive line depth for Alabama. And then, of course, at that bandit position, at the lower left, you have Kelby Collins, who just committed to Alabama, Jordan Renard, and Keon Keeley. Not listed on this graphic is LT Overton, who we think will probably go to the NFL. So let me recap for the people just coming in real quick about a couple of pieces of morning news, and then we'll talk some college football playoffs on this back end side. So let me get to the top of the graphic. Again, I appreciate you guys being here. I'll kind of run over the highlights real fast of the show, and then we'll start talking some college football playoffs because I'd love some feedback from what we saw yesterday. And a good graphic is just to start right at the top. So in case you're just here, and I know I have, we have 429 on. So the lead is 3 new commits. And if you missed it, because a lot of people pop in, pop out of the show. So just be patient. Let me just run through this real quick. Isiah Horton out of Miami committed. Nikhai Hill-Green out of Colorado committed. And Kam Dewberry out of Texas A&M, they committed. Though, we have stories or videos rather, and I'm sure you're reading your recruiting stories. So those guys are in. And we just spent the last 20 minutes talking about how they fit into the roster. The other piece of news that is really significant going into this ReliaQuest Bowl is the fact that Kaden Proctor is expected to miss this upcoming bowl game with the injury. We don't know what the injury is, but he will be out. Why is that concerning? Well, obviously, there's a position of need at right tackle, and now it looks like Formby and Pritchett will start at the tackle positions against Michigan. So that is something that we are tracking. And again, as we have more bowl coverage leading up to the ReliaQuest Bowl, which is on the 31st, we'll keep you posted on that tackle position. But it looks like Formby and Pritchett, at least as of today, will be your starters. All right. So Nick is asking inside the comment box why we didn't add Tennessee. T?
Yeah. Well, because Tennessee beat us.
Well, because we were talking in the beginning of the show, and I was like, because I came up with the poll question. So I was like, what does our poll question say? Who is more of a playoff pretender? We were talking, and we're like, well, we could list, SMU, Indiana, Tennessee, Clemson.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, what about Tennessee? And I was like, well, Tennessee, beat Alabama. So you add them in the polls. People, Tennessee beat Alabama straight up.
We didn't want to make you mad first thing in the morning.
All right, let's talk college football playoffs. I appreciate you guys being here. I have T up in the house coming to you from Santa Fe, New Mexico. I think we even have a shot of grandma in that as we got breakfast cooking. So let me go full screen on this and we'll talk about the playoffs. So let me ask you, let's add a new poll.
Okay.
What was the most satisfying loss? Was it watching Tennessee lose? Was it watching Indiana lose? Was it watching Indiana, SMU, or Tennessee? List those three, because I think Clemson, I knew that they'd play a little bit better than expected, but I think it's those three. I think it's Tennessee, SMU, and Indiana, right? And I think it'll probably be split between Tennessee and SMU. So let's kind of recap at the first game, and that was Friday night. There was 5 minutes of this game that I felt were interesting, okay? 5 minutes. And that was when Notre Dame scored on a 97-yard touchdown, and there was 2 interceptions between each of the quarterbacks. Other than that, this game, what was your boring level? If like you were absolutely bored to death, like 10-10, or you were like moderately exciting, honestly, this game was like 8 out of 10 boring for me. This game sucked. I was not interested in this Notre Dame, Indiana state championship. The only thing that was interesting to me about this game was before the game was with Coach Saban putting Shane Gillis in his place. And Coach Saban had his Indiana Jones hat on, right? Other than that, it was boring. The game was boring. You can't see this on the screen right here because of where my camera is, but these are a couple different stats that stood out to me. Indiana could not run the football. All right. They had 27 rushes for 63 yards against Notre Dame. And you'll kind of notice when you look at the team stats from the playoffs, the teams that won the game yesterday were able to run the football. Notre Dame ran the football 35 times for 193 yards. Now, 97 yards came off one particular run, but you get what I'm saying. The team, like Notre Dame was able to run against Tennessee. Penn State was able to run against SMU. SMU could not run, and I get it, different schematics because the teams were trailing, but that was something that stood out to me. When you look to Indiana overall, they finished the season 11-2, 0-2 against top 25 teams. Curt Cignetti is 22-3 over the last 2 seasons. Remember, last year he was at James Madison. Now he's at Indiana. This team was an absolute pretender. We all saw this. Did they deserve to make the playoffs? No, they really didn't. Like, this was one of the teams that we knew this was eventually going to happen. And they caught Notre Dame because Notre Dame's not even part of a conference. Look, is it a good story to follow Curt Cignetti and I like his energy and all that? For sure. But like realistically, this team, like I keep on thinking, where do these teams fit in the SEC? Hypotheticals, right? Does this team win the Big 12? Does this team win the ACC? I have no idea. But this team was a pretender. Average quarterback, not a lot of weapons on the offensive side, mediocre defense, 0-2 versus top 25. It wasn't impressive. And they were who we thought they were, period. Absolute pretender, okay? This other game, too. This was a game that I had really high interest in, to be honest, because I wanted to see SMU get embarrassed. Period. That's what I was watching because I knew, I don't even think that Penn State's good. Does anybody here feel like different about Penn State? That they think they're going to, and you know what? Penn State kind of has an interesting bracket now because they match up with Georgia, and Georgia is playing with their backup quarterback, right? So, I mean, I think that's right. I think it's Penn State, Georgia. Let me see that. I have it on the backside. No, it's Notre Dame and Georgia. My bad. So Penn State. It's even easier.
Ooh.
Penn State matchups with Boise. My bad.
Wow.
This is the matchup. So look, I wasn't impressed with Penn State. I don't think they're a good football team either. SMU was terrible. Their quarterback threw, it should have been 3 pick sixes. Okay. Wasn't impressed with SMU at all. This team finishes 11-3 on the season. I was listening to Scott Lashley, their head football coach, or Rhett Lashley, my bad. Rhett Lashley. After the game, and he continues to defend his team that they were a playoff type team. No, they weren't. Was there anything that you saw about SMU during the 2 times? I know you guys only saw them play 2 times, right? You only watched them against Clemson, and you only watched them against Penn State. No one else watched SMU play, okay? And again, kind of the highlights of these stats, kind of where my camera is. SMU, they ran the football 36 times for only 58 yards. Penn State was able to run 40 times for 189 yards. I don't even think Penn State played that well. Now, SMU also had 3 turnovers in the game. 3 were interceptions. But on the season, SMU goes 11-3, 0 quality wins. This wasn't, look, Dabo Swinney coming off. This is exactly what he wanted. He didn't want any of the SEC teams in the playoffs. He said, this is a playoff team. How are you a playoff team, Dabo Swinney? Like, I think you played a little bit better than we anticipated against Texas, but not a playoff team. And SMU, you're not a playoff team, period. That was embarrassing. It was sad. Courtney Morgan, Alabama's general manager, he didn't necessarily, when SMU was getting their ass kicked, he tweeted out disgusting. And I think that's probably a lot of how a lot of the fans felt that, and I'm past Alabama getting the playoffs. I'm just saying this wasn't the best 12 teams. And should there even be 12 teams playing in the playoffs? Maybe it should just be 8. I don't know. But Rhett Lashley and SMU, they finished 11-3, completely embarrassed yesterday. This game, 38-24 with Texas and Clemson. Look, Clemson was leading 7-0. And then Texas was at halftime was leading 28-10. Clemson came back and really never threw in the towel in this game, which I think is commendable. They finished 10-4, 38-24. Texas wins. Texas controlled this game. They're able to run the ball against Clemson as well. The one thing that's always going to stand out to me, and that made me really upset about watching Clemson get into the playoffs, is the fact that their very last game before they played in the ACC championship game is that they lost to South Carolina.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that I always
and recent losses that really affected tons of other teams, but it didn't affect them at all in the
because
polls
all they had to do was win their conference.
Yeah.
Against SMU.
Mm-hmm.
So should Clemson have been there? No, they made the playoffs with 4 losses. Now they have 4 losses. Anyways, I just wasn't impressed with Clemson either.
Hey, speaking of Clemson, have you heard anything about Peter Woods? A lot of people are asking about that.
No, that's something that I have written down right here. So I know people are talking about Peter Woods. So that's something that we'll dive into probably more on Monday's show. And also Alabama had a visitor in a safety out of Baylor yesterday. So those are a couple of things that we'll track on Monday's show. So good feedback, though. Peter Woods was a guy that I think was in the mix before, he went elsewhere. That was in the mix for Alabama. So familiar name probably on Alabama's radar. Clemson was able to throw the football a ton. They threw the football 336 yards. But again, you look to the fact that Texas was able to run the football 48 carries for 292 yards. Again, we see that continued theme with teams that won yesterday were able to run the football. And then finally last night, what were your thoughts on this game? Ohio State beating Tennessee 42-17. This game opened 21-0. Okay. Tennessee, they added 10 on the board before half. Ohio State dominated this game. You know what? Say what you want about Ryan Day. You could talk about Ryan Day. No, Ohio State looked like a good. I didn't think Notre Dame. I wasn't that impressed with Notre Dame. Wasn't that impressed with Penn State. Texas looked like Texas. Okay. But Ohio State looked pretty good. And if you look to Ohio State right now, I think that loss for them against Michigan came at the absolutely perfect time because you get reverse rat poison, right? You're going to fire Ryan Day. You know who came to Coach Ryan Day's defense? A little bit was Coach Saban on game day if you watched it. This team has weapons. Look, Will Howard operated the offense at a really high level. They can run the football. And while Alabama has, the best wide receiver in college football that's a freshman, Ohio State does too, right? That guy might be number 2 in the nation. That Jeremiah Smith, did you guys see him play? Man. So look, how does the bracket look going forward? Let's look at it real quick. This is how things look. So you have Texas taking on Arizona State. Arizona State had a bye. Okay? These are the New Year's Six games. So you have Texas, who's a 2-touchdown favorite against Arizona State. Okay?
Yeah, wild.
Ohio State and Oregon, that's going to be fantastic television. That should be a hell of a game. These two teams played at the back end of the season. I'm sure Ohio State feels that they should have won that game. The first time they played, I think Ohio State's favored by 1.5. I put this together this morning. And then Penn State, 10.5 point favorite against Boise State. And there, here at the bottom, you have Georgia and Notre Dame. They're expecting that game to be a little bit closer. Mm-hmm. So let me ask you, inside the comment box, how are you feeling about these next New Year's Six matchups? Is there anyone, I mean, I would imagine Texas does what they want against Arizona State. I don't know who I'm taking. Who wins, Ohio State or Oregon? Sound off inside the comment box. Type O for Ohio State and type O for Oregon. Just kidding. Who? I don't know who. I think I would have probably taken Oregon like a week ago, but I don't know. Ohio State looked pretty good last night. See, I'm with Sel inside the comment box. Is Ohio State plays well when they're being doubted. So that's the thing. I think Ohio State wins this game, but they don't win a big game. Like Ryan Day won't beat Steve Sarkisian, or he won't win the championship game. I don't know. That's what I'm thinking. All right. Yo, Samuel, I'm telling you, dude, Jeremiah Smith, dude, for Ohio State, he is a monster. It's crazy to think that him and Ryan Williams are just freshmen. That catch that he made, the first touchdown catch that he made where he adjusted the football, that was a hell of a catch. So what's the feedback, T?
I think most people think Ohio State's going to get revenge this game.
Yeah, me too. I'm kind of thinking. I mean, last night, look, say what you want to. They did. They looked like a buzzsaw last night. And then Penn State, Boise. Are you kidding me? So that game's at night on the 31st. Okay. What time's the Bama game on the 31st? I guess it would be. Is it like in the morning? I didn't even check what time that game is at. And then on the 1st, you have the evening games, I guess, are Ohio State, Oregon, and Notre Dame and Georgia. What's that time, T? 11 a.m., promise time?
Yeah, it says 10 a.m. here, so 11 Central.
Okay, 11 Central time. Okay, 11 a.m. game in Tampa. I like it. All right, 11 a.m. Okay, so that's the game we start out with. Good. All right, so look, I mean, I'm taking – how are we feeling about this Georgia-Notre Dame game? Georgia's quarterback, he's out. I still think Georgia handles Notre Dame, right? It would be really surprising. You know, this bracket kind of sets up really well for Penn State. Penn State beats Boise State. Let's say Notre Dame somehow upsets Georgia, right? And then Penn State and Texas for the championship? But I don't think there's any way that Notre Dame beats Georgia. So
it surprised me a little bit that line is so close.
Yeah, me too. I think they trying to figure out, you know, the quarterback situation for Georgia.
Yeah, I keep forgetting.
But Carson Beck might throw 6 interceptions in a game. You kind of have no idea.
Well, so is he playing or no?
No, he's out. Okay. He's like looking for surgery options right now, or he had surgery. So that's kind of where we stand. So I appreciate you guys rocking with us today. Kyle Henderson, Bama Football Along with T right here, coming to you from Santa Fe, New Mexico. I appreciate you guys continuing to rock with us. We'll have our continued daily shows and, of course, news as it happens right here on Bama Football on YouTube. I sincerely appreciate you guys rocking with us, whether it's transfer portal editions or college football playoff talk. And keep this in mind, too. Alabama's transfer portal closes on January 5th. So you still have bowl game coverage, and then I would imagine, you know, some more transfer portal news. And I think I have one more graphic that I'd like to show real fast, if I can, before you guys dip out. Because I think when you look to the players that have gone elsewhere, I don't know if there's been like any like significant losses. I mean, it's always, you know, easy to say that when you're kind of looking at, you know, guys who have gone elsewhere. Here's kind of how things look. You know, you have Damon Payne, who went to Michigan, and then it got nullified. That was weird. Dylan Lonergan with Boston College. I like that for him. Kobe Prentice going to Baylor. You know, I'm really interested to see where Justice Haynes goes. That will be the most interesting one out of all these ones, right? I don't want him to go to Ole Miss, and I don't want him to go to South Carolina.
I could see him going to either one of those places, though.
South Carolina would be a great addition. I mean, South Carolina gets Justice Haynes, yo, that's rolling. And then Kendrick Law going to Kentucky. A lot of people were like, man, he's not going to get the ball there either. They don't even throw the football there. Caleb Odom, I think that will be a good landing spot for him. He's just got to focus on like getting, if he doesn't like get opportunities, he has to work and develop for it. Caleb Odom and Caleb Cunningham should be a great combo. Miles McVay going out to test the waters with Bill Belichick. Nyquil Bentre going up to Syracuse. Daheem Otis going to Colorado. Keanu Cote to Vanderbilt. Jalil Hurley going to Kansas, and Devontae Smith going to Notre Dame.
Hey, do you see Al's comment? He's saying the transfer out date is January something, but the transfer in cutoff is December 28th. So even though Alabama can transfer until January, 5th?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Does that mean that they wouldn't be able to transfer in anywhere this semester if they waited that long?
So let's see. Hey, Kyle, the transfer out date is January. The transfer cutoff date is January 28th. I don't know. It's confusing for me, to be honest, too, because it's like, does that mean that players can still, like the way that I'm seeing it, and I'll dive into this so I can, more tomorrow, because that's been something that's been on my mind, is like, does that mean that players can still leave from Alabama on January 5th? Or does that mean players can still come in?
Well, no, I think it means that they can leave Alabama is what Al's saying, but they wouldn't be able to go anywhere else unless that team had just played in a bowl game also.
That's what's confusing is that's what's also scary is like this complicated rule. But then how about this spring portal rule? Can you type in real quick? What is the spring transfer portal date for 2025? Army 32-30-75. What's up? I see you inside the comment box. Appreciate you. Gelato, what's going on? And thanks, Coach Al Sanders. Good to see you, man. Merry Christmas to you.
April 16th.
And how long does that last? It's like a
10
week.
10 days. That's it.
So isn't that crazy that a player that transferred in, okay, think about this. Let's just say Isiah Horton transfers in. And he's not vibing during spring. He's not getting the football, whatever. He can transfer out again.
Yeah.
There's no contracts.
Yeah.
So Al Sanders is saying 5 days after the bowl game to transfer out. That's what I'm saying.
But he's saying for everyone else that, like, I guess, didn't play in a bowl game, theirs ended the 28th. So you can't transfer into those schools.
No, it's confusing. All right. Appreciate you guys. Yeah. Thank you so much for being with us. I appreciate you guys rocking with us, all 414 with you. As news happens, please turn on the notifications so you're notified when news breaks. And also, look, please support all the other great content creators out there, whether they cover Alabama football or, their mega platforms or small creators as well. I know those guys personally, and they're all putting in the work, and I know they're doing their best to bring you content that I know you guys love. So, if you're members of the show, like, look, it's all good. Like, zero jealousy, like, support those guys, support the product. It's all good. I appreciate you guys giving us an opportunity to talk Alabama football. And I hope you honestly have a blessed Sunday and an enjoyable rest of your day watching NFL or, whatever you got planned for this beautiful Sunday. Be where your feet are. Have an amazing day. I will catch up with you as news happens. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you inside the comment box as always and catch up with you soon. Have an amazing day. Thanks for watching. Coming to you from beautiful Santa Fe, New Mexico, Kyle Henderson, Bama Football on YouTube. See you guys.